The next part of this waiver wire show is going to dive into some Tank Dell replacement plans. Obviously, there's no replacing one of the most exciting rookie receivers, one of the most maddening injuries we've seen. What is he doing blocking up the gut? This 165-pound, 5'9". What are we doing here? I don't understand at all what Bobby Slowick was thinking. He has some answer to do. I hope the beat writers really interrogate this guy and wonder, what were you thinking? Brutal break for Tank Dell, for his owners. It just is absolutely abysmal. We got to move on, though. We got to figure out ways that we can try to make up as many points as we can in his absence. So I've got a handful, about 10 players. We're going to go through the top 6 options and a couple honorable mentions right now to see what you can do to try to replace this. And even if you just don't need to replace Tank Dell, you just need a wide receiver, this could also be really beneficial information for you. So deep league honorable mentions in terms of Tank Dell replacement plans, starting with Jonathan Mingo. He had 10 targets, 6 catches, 69 yards in the Panthers' last game. And this now marks 4 straight games actually, with 20% or higher target share for Jonathan Mingo. He's run 89% or higher routes in 3 straight games. We've seen his points go from 2 to 10 to 13, trending right now. Wide receiver 24 week. This last one, I get it. I don't necessarily really want to attach myself to a Bryce Young weapon either. It is so sickening, and we're seeing Thielen crumble, and I don't think I could ever truly trust Jonathan Mingo. This is an exciting specimen that's starting to get in more increasing role here. Maybe, just maybe, he continues to pick this pace up and has a nice stretch run finish here. The schedule isn't scary at all. Alec Pierce also getting an honorable mention. Sophomore season has been such a disappointment for Alec Pierce. I really like the kid. I was hoping for a breakout. All the training camp buzz was really pouring in on this kid. He hasn't had a single meaningful day until this past week. 6 targets, 3 catches, 100 yards, including that deep touchdown bomb. It was by far his best game. And as a rookie, we saw some real flashes, 10, 12 points, 3 games in a row, then was up and down the carousel, but then ended the season with a 16.6. This kid's a speedster, ball skills. I'm surprised they're not using him in a more intermediate role like the training camp beat reports were suggesting, but Pittman's just obviously dominating in that role right now. But should something happen to Pittman, or if this is maybe the launching point for Alec Pierce, worth a stash. These, again, are very deep league. I know a lot of you guys say, not available in my league. Well, these guys are out there for you if you're desperate. Also out there in a lot of leagues, my number 6 wide receiver pickup of this week is Jaylen Hyatt, coming off the bye. He's actually one of only 3 rookie receivers. We know Tank, no Puka Nacua, obviously dominating this year, but Jaylen Hyatt's the only other rookie to top 75 or more yards in 3 of his games this season. And you probably wouldn't know that. I was shocked to see that stat as well, given that it's one in the Giants with a moribund, horrendous attack that nobody would have imagined that a receiver in that offense is actually performing. But he's been really solid, and especially when given the opportunity. He got the best opportunity of the season that week before the bye against my Patriots. I was watching this kid, and he was as electric as I expected. 6 targets, 5 catches, 109 yards, ran 70% of the routes, was a season high there, and as well as a season high 26% target share and a whopping 65% of the air yards that game. And yet, despite all this deep yardage, 83% of his targets were deemed catchable. That is amazing, that deep efficiency. It's how wide open and separating he was getting. And that was consistently what he did over there at Tennessee when he won the Biletnikoff Award. He had that 6-catch, 207-yard, 5-touchdown day against the Crimson Tide. This is a guy with an insane track record in college that's showing that he can also do that in the pros with that 91st percentile 4.4 40-yard dash, highlight reel kind of guy all camp. The schedule gets pretty soft. He got Green Bay, not the best of matchups this week, but after that, New Orleans without Lattimore is getting absolutely dusted. Then Philly's giving up the most points to receivers, and then the Rams, middle of the road. So the schedule gets actually pretty soft here for Jaylen Hyatt. And if Tyrod Taylor comes back, even better. He was activated off the injured reserve today. We'll see when he officially enters the lineup, but he was Jaylen Hyatt's boy before going out, and Tommy DeVito, either way, is slinging it nice and deep to Hyatt. Very intriguing rookie talent that I would like to see more of, and certainly willing to stash in some deeper leagues. Jameson Williams, 24% rostered, about 5 to 10% of my fab I would be willing to spend on him. We now have 3 straight weeks. He had never run 60% or more routes his entire NFL career, and bam, 11, 12, and 13 weeks, every single one of them was 62% or higher route share. Now, he isn't getting a ton of works and look on that, and yet he's still put up 12, 7, and 10 PPR points in those 3 games. Every time he gets the ball, he just looks so electric. Anybody watching that game where he scored the go-ahead 19-yard rushing touchdown on that kind of end-around play, it was just ridiculous how much faster he was than every single player on that field. He's making highlight play blocks as well, getting the trust of his coaches. And offensive coordinator Ben Johnson, one of my favorite play callers in the league, did say that Williams should be seeing increased usage moving forward. Williams' reps, quote, are going up. He continues to get out there, and the ball is going to just keep gravitating to him a little bit more than it already has. So an increased role for a truly special athlete. We're talking 4.3, 9.40, 94th percentile speed with a 6'1". That size speed terror. We saw it in college. 79 catches, 1,572 yards, 19.9 yards per reception. Never was under 16.5 yards per reception his entire career. 15 touchdowns on those 79 catches. He was an absolute game record that many said was the most upside to any prospect in that. Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, a ridiculously talented class. Many of them had many talent values that had Jameson Williams as their top prospect, and we could potentially see that role grow. According to Ben Johnson, we're seeing the flashes, we're seeing the glimpses. If it becomes a full-time role with 7 to 8 targets, if they continue to get this guy the ball in space, look out. He has probably the highest upside of any receiver on this list, despite the lowest floor too, as a potential replacement plan. I couldn't really believe how productive Elijah Moore, 42% rostered right now, how he's been even with Amari Cooper in the lineup. But now Amari Cooper suffers a concussion. Joe Flacco steps right in. And also one of the more shocking developments is how good Flacco's arm looked. That ball was spinning like it was 5 years ago, how healthy that thing was ripping. And certainly over DTR, PJ Walker, that arm was very live for Joe Flacco. And we know that Elijah Moore has been his boy in the past. 12 targets, only 4 catches, 83 yards, though. Looking really, really solid, Elijah Moore, making some crucial move the chains. That was a 28% target share. And quietly over these last 4s, we've now seen Elijah Moore put up 15, 12, 7, and 12 PPR points. Been the wide receiver 20, 25, 55, and 27. So 3 of his last 4 inside your top 27 wide receivers. Really, really solid for Elijah Moore. Now gets his boy Joe Flacco at quarterback. Maybe Amari Cooper. We don't know how long this injury is going to linger, but until he's back, it's going to be the clear-cut number 1 target for Elijah Moore, just like he was this last week. In the schedule isn't too shabby here for your Browns. So assuming that Joe Flacco continues to get more comfortable, looking as solid as he did, we got his number 1 weapon here in Elijah Moore. That's definitely a guy I would be looking to spend 6 to 12% minimum. And these fab estimations, they're just guesses. If you lost Tank Dell and you need a wide receiver, you might have to put up 25, 30% to get Eli Moore. You know your league better than I do. You got to make sure you go and get at least one of these guys. And I would say Curtis Samuel. Now, the risk here is he's on bye this week. We can't help you right away if you're trying to replace Tank Dell. So you might have to look back to any of those other guys we talked about or my top 2 options here if you need that immediate plug and play. But if you just want some nice receiver depth, Curtis Samuel has become by far the most consistent wideout in this Washington offense. 5 targets, 4 catches, 65 yards, just by an inch, missing a touchdown as well this last week. He's only 38% roster right now. I think another 20 so bid makes sense to get him. Just a week ago, 12 targets, 9 catches, 100 yards, 19 PPR fantasy points, 36 targets per route run. So back-to-back, pretty impressive weeks, kind of building off. Again, we saw a 3-week span from weeks 4 to 6. He had 18.2, 18.5, and 14.2 fantasy points in a 3-game span, and we're starting to see him catch fire yet again with Sam Howell since returning from injury. In fact, in their healthy games, he averages, Curtis Samuel, a significantly more points per game than Terry McLaurin even, who's consistently ranked 20 spots above Curtis Samuel. He had a 0 last week. It is clear that we have Curtis Samuel getting targeted so much by Sam Howell, who that dates back kind of to his college days where he targeted Josh Downs, a slot receiver, whopping 41% of the time in college. We're seeing that kind of translate here with Curtis Samuel. So if you don't need that immediate play, we got the bye again this week. They get the Rams in middle of the road matchup, the Jets in week 16. That sucks. But then week 17, the San Fran 49ers, actually really bad against wide receivers, a top 12 matchup for wideouts in particular, really solid for slots. So Curtis Samuel with this really impressive role here in this Commanders offense, a great potential replacement plan for you. You just got to stomach that bye week. Now, maybe a way to stomach that bye week could be Odell Beckham, my number 2 potential waiver wire plan to replace Tank Dell. Now, last week out was pretty disappointing in week 12 because from weeks 9, 10, and 11, we really were seeing a different Odell Beckham. I mean, he talked about how I'm explosive, I'm back, I'm feeling good. And in that span, wide receiver 10, wide receiver 30, and wide receiver 18. We had a game, 4 catches, 116 yards for Odell Beckham. And then he had a shoulder injury, was in a minimal role in week 12, played 33% of the routes, and that was it. But the big thing was he saw 42% targets per route run. And the week before that, 41% targets per route run. So when he was in, he was winning on his routes and he was getting the ball slung in his direction. So as long as he's healthy and he's running more routes, if that continues over that 41 and 42% targets per run, that's elite metric right there for a wideout that we've seen be an absolute hero down stretch runs before. So coming out of the bye, if he is healthy, this could easily be a top 24 option for you. And I could see Odell Beckham being worth 12, 20%. Again, 25 if you need to spend it to go get this guy. This is an offense you want a piece of, and their schedule is pretty solid here for passing games moving forward, the Ravens. And of course, again, no Mark Andrews, so they're going to need weapons. We saw Isaiah Flowers step up. Isaiah likely saw some targets, but we could definitely see Odell Beckham fill a huge void for this offense. My number one potential replacement, though, for Tank Dell, why not look outside this organization at all? Look at Noah Brown, his teammate, 40% rostered. I think this guy's worth 20 to 25%, maybe even more of your fab. When Tank Dell went down, we had Noah Brown step in for 93% of the routes compared to just 46% for Robert Woods, 37% for John Mechie. It was definitely a full-time role for Noah Brown. And I get he didn't do much this week with it. He was coming back from injury. He didn't look fully healthy himself, but just for the last 3 weeks before that, before he got hurt, he had led the team in receiving in weeks 8, 9, and 10, all three of them in a row. Now, the week 8 one was so-so, but weeks 9 and 10, we saw Noah Brown go for 153 and 172 yards, was the wide receiver 5 and wide receiver 3 in those 2 games during that span. And yeah, he gets the Jets this week, not the best spot to go and toss Noah Brown in. But after that, he gets Tennessee twice, a top 8 matchup in particular, getting destroyed by outside wide receivers. So it does depend where he ends up lining up. He's been in the slot, moving him around, but they know why not go after another piece of this CJ Stroud offense, as he's on pace to smash every single rookie passing record that Andrew Luck's. Just obviously such a special player that's elevating everybody around him. We've seen him elevate Noah Brown to top 5 numbers in back-to-back weeks before. There's a real chance that happens here the rest of the way, especially because it was very clear. Even though, again, the stats weren't there this week, it was very clear Noah Brown is going to be that guy that steps into a full-time role. It could really do some damage as the next man up for CJ Stroud. That's where I'd like to attack this first. But of course, Odell Beckham, Curtis Samuel, Eli Moore, Jameson Williams, and Jaylen Hyatt, also some other options to look at if you missed out on Noah Brown and he's not out there in your leagues. Those are some other names that could help soften the blow. You're never going to replace Tank Dell, but those are some names that could help soften the blow on your Week 14 waiver wire. What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.